Oh, and Gillian's here, I see.
Yeah. Just a caution, my internet is iffy this evening, so if I disappear, I will try to come back.
Not Wired Wendell by any chance.
Yeah, I've been on the phone with them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's happening to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they are working on it diligently.
Sounds like it.
And Swift River was down from 12:30 today.
Wow.
It was still down when I left at 5:15. Yeah.
I was down in New Salem all day too.
Oh, you were? Yeah. So it's a bigger issue. Ugh.
Okay, well, it is 7:02, so we can open the meeting. And looks like the first item on the agenda is Board of Assessors regarding hiring professional assessing firm and also assessor's clerk. And just as an opening remark, I'd just like to say that it was my impression from the money managers meeting that essentially the money managers were supporting the assessors in their efforts to hire a professional accounting person. But apparently not everyone felt that way. So I will open the floor to the Board of Assessors and we can discuss that item again.
No, I would agree that everybody did offer their support, at least in the short term. So I did hear that. I think I have been talking more with RRG. The contract that we are currently discussing with them is a 3-year contract. That's how they operate because of the procurement things that we ran into this time with having to request other bids from other companies and the complication of that doing that every year. So we are talking about making a 3-year commitment and want to make sure that we have the support of the town in doing that. I think it's important that we have everybody's support because this company will need to be working with tax collector, the treasurer, other parts of the town government will need to be cooperating with them also. And it also sounded like maybe there was some talk about combining the position with a position in New Salem. So if that's something that's on the table, we want to be involved in those conversations. And I think if that really is something that the select board is seriously considering, then us moving forward with RRG needs to be talked about with that in mind.
Well, actually, Anna, I don't think the select board was ever talking about combining this position with New Salem. We were talking about, the select board did decide a few weeks ago to go out on its own to hire a new town coordinator to replace Nancy and not go out with New Salem to look for a new town coordinator. So we essentially made the decision to make it a 3/4 time position and have our own dedicated town coordinator, and also have that person, in order to fill out a more full-time job, serve as the clerk for certain other boards, which we thought would be helpful in coordinating the boards and tying things together, having everybody know what everybody else is doing. So it'd be helpful from that perspective. But there was never, as far as I know, any discussion of sharing any of these with New Salem.
Okay, it's possible I misunderstood. It was definitely very quick at the end of our conversation about it that I thought maybe Lori had said something about it. I'm not sure. I could have misunderstood.
No, I can explain if you want. In our discussions of sharing the town coordinator position with New Salem, their select board chair said, maybe in the future, we might also share other positions, one being the clerk to the assessors. So not not anyone who would be doing the big job the contractors are doing, but just the clerk. But that was about it. That was it. He said maybe this is something, or other shared positions might come up, and that was one example. So that was it.
Okay. So I could have misunderstood. It sounds like I did. So we would like to go forward with a 3-year contract. We think it's for all the reasons I said in the email, we think it's a really good solution to the problems that we've been running into with keeping our office staffed and having to hire consultants who are more experienced than the level of staff that we've been having in the office. I am at least looking forward to working with them. I think they have a lot of expertise and knowledge that they're going to bring to our office and help us sort out a lot of issues. So we would like to just get your support for the 3-year contract. And then we also are discussing with them an interim contract that would be from as soon as we negotiate to the end of this fiscal year, to get them started as soon as possible.
That all sounds good to me. I'd be happy to support it. Gillian, Lori?
Sounds good to me.
Great. So a couple things along those lines. We currently have enough money within our budget to pay for the interim contract. It's just not in the right place. So we have, based on the latest budget information that the accountant sent, I think earlier today, we have almost 16,000 left in the account that would have paid the administrative assessor. So we would like to request transferring that money. I believe it has to happen at town meeting, to our reval account, so that we can pay, before that happens, we can pay our RG out of our reval account, and then that money can be reimbursed.
So Anna, after May 15th, you can do an interdepartmental transfer without going to town meeting. If you can just hold out for a couple more weeks, we don't have to go to town meeting to do that.
Oh, great. That simplifies things. So the interim.
Can we just clarify that? So Nancy, from one line item to another in our department, we can.
Yes, I can give you the form if you want to stop by someday.
Okay,
When you
thank you.
Yeah, that would be great.
Explain that up, I'll do it.
So the
Question about that though.
go ahead.
Does it matter that the reval is a fund that gets money put in it every year and it gets carried over, and the other money is not? Does that matter?
I think they were talking about taking it from the money that they were going to use to pay the clerk.
Right. The administrative assessment, but the just wondering if it matters that the reval account that they want to put it into is one that gets carried over year to year, so it has like, I don't know, $19,000 in it or something like that, if I remember.
21 now.
Yeah, so I don't know if that makes any difference or
Yeah,
not.
I
And
can
then
check, I can check the accountant.
We
you might want to check
could
that.
we could transfer to the expense account. The problem is we may need to pay our RG before that May 15th date, and we can pay them out of our reval account. So I would want to replenish that account. We won't need the total. It's 15,800 that's in that salary account. The interim contract is 8,000, and then we may need a little bit more to cover our consultant, who we've been paying out of our expense account. So there will likely be a few thousand left over at the end of the year that could go back to free cash that we wouldn't spend.
Is there a reason not to move it from the salary line to the expense line and just pay it out of that?
Depending on the timing, if we don't need to pay our RG before we can make that transfer, then we could do it all through the expense account. If we need to pay them sooner, the only place we have enough money to pay that full amount is from the reval account.
Hmm.
I think I'll have to look at the contract again. I'm not sure whether we need to pay the full interim contract at once, but we would want them to start work before May 15th. And they aren't going to start until we pay them something. So,
Well, the next warrant isn't until May 12th, so
okay.
it's not going to be much before that anyway.
All right. Well, we can work that out. I think that we would just pay it out of the expense account if we can, because that's the simplest. But I think what we're saying is that if we end up taking it out of the reval account, then whether we could transfer money from our expense account back into the reval account at town meeting, or I'm not sure how that would be done, but we would want to replenish the reval account. Is that,
So-
do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think if are you saying that in the fiscal 22 budget, you would want to reduce the expense account and increase the reval account?
No. What we're saying is that if it requires a town meeting vote to transfer fiscal 21 expense money into the reval account, then we would want to do that at town meeting. It's possible, from what Nancy's saying, is that it wouldn't require a town meeting vote.
Yeah, no,
I don't know.
It
But
doesn't look like
this
it
wouldn't
will.
this wouldn't affect our FY22
Oh.
budget.
Okay. So there would be no need to change the numbers that we have now for the FY22
No.
Correct.
fencing. Okay, that's good.
The other thing I wanted to just touch on was the hours for the clerk, because I know Doug and Dan had both mentioned you want to reduce that to 3 hours a week. What we have budgeted for in our budget numbers that you already have is 5 hours a week at $15 an hour for the clerk. And we need that 5 hours a week in order to fulfill our responsibilities in the contract with RRG. 3 hours a week would really only barely cover our meeting time and a couple hours more than that. So we need to keep the 5 hours a week for that position.
Well, would it be okay if the new town coordinator filled that slot?
I think that would be fine as long as it's 5 hours and not 3 hours.
Well, we can go back and look at the numbers and see if there's 5 hours there. Probably there.
And then if it is done, like, how does that affect our budget? So is that
Then that
position paid, can that be paid from multiple departments? Do we
it
need
has
to?
no impact. Yeah, yes, the person can be paid from different line items.
Okay.
Okay, good.
So I think we have 4,000 in our budget in the,
Yes,
um,
I believe that's right.
under the assessor expenses. of
Is it 4 or
45,400.
4,500?
That includes $4,000 for 5 hours a week.
Mhm.
Okay, this is Nancy. I'm just going to point out that the $15 an hour is less than you would be paying the town coordinator, so I don't know how that would work.
That was part of the motivation for us to reduce the hours of it.
Well, Doug, do you think there's any way we can squeeze 5 hours in?
I think the other, yeah, because I mean, it depends. If we recall that we were intending to start the new administrative person at a slightly lower salary to let her grow into it, so that it probably work out. It would probably mean bumping that up just a little bit for the third. What 2 hours? We're talking 2 hours a week. The extra $10 a week.
What
Yeah.
is
I think we can get it.
what is the pay range for the,
It's about $20 an hour. 21.
so should we
The rate.
just increase the
No,
assessor's
no,
budget to cover, because that's gonna be, if it's gonna be $20 to $21 an hour for this position, and they're gonna be doing this work for the next several years, that's what we would want in our budget, right?
Well, we'll have to, this will definitely have to be taken year to year. I get that component. But
Would it be easier to reduce the assessor's budget by that amount and then just transfer that line item over to the town coordinator line?
and that, you know what, in a, frankly, yes, that would probably be easier. Yes, I agree.
So
Would be.
it would be paid out of the
Yeah.
budget for the
Yeah.
town administrator instead of out of our budget.
I agree.
That seems a lot simpler,
It would
as
be.
long as we're able to get 5 hours a week from that person.
It would be more, it would be easier for the, to be tracked and, the whole thing and the payouts and everything.
Right.
So yeah, we could do it that way. That's not hard.
We will have to work out our meeting schedule. We currently meet simultaneously. Okay, so our assessor's expense line would then go to 41,400.
I don't know what the total is. I'd have to look at, I'd have to take the number that was specifically for the clerk, move that over.
Well, the clerk in our isn't spelled out specifically, right? Under assessor expenses, we combined the clerk, RRG, and all our expenses into one line.
Yeah, didn't you give me a breakout of that? But I don't know where it is. So
Oh,
yeah, if you tell
probably-
me, if you just tell me what the number is, that's good. I'll do it.
I think the new total should be
No,
41,400.
I don't want the total. I just want I want the number that I should move.
You know what, Anna, let me look at the budget too, because it's just hard to figure it on the fly right here, Doug.
Okay, that's
Can
fine.
we,
Send it to
can
me.
we just like look at it and
Yep, I
figure it
definitely,
out so we don't
definitely.
make a
Not a
mistake?
problem at all.
Okay.
Email me the number of money that gets moved from your account to the town administrator
Okay,
from.
sounds good.
I think that's it, other than I want to let everybody know, we plan to send out a letter to all property owners in town, introducing RRG and talking about the reasons why we are hiring them and the changes in the way that they operate. They do everything by letter, so I want to really stress to everybody to pay attention to the letters from the assessor's office and to respond to them. So that will be coming out in the next couple weeks.
Would it be possible for some time, probably over the summer, I suppose. I don't think it matters whether it's before town meeting or not, but for there to be I don't know, an open meeting of sorts where those folks could come and discuss how they work, who they are, what their policies are, you know, how they determine levels, what's happening with people who get adjusted, who have their property values adjusted versus those who don't, and what the policy is on personal property tax, businesses and all of that.
That's a good
Yeah, I can
idea.
talk to them about that and see
Yeah,
if the
I think-
person who will be covering our office
Yeah.
would be willing to come and do that.
That'd be great.
Really, all of those policies are state law, and we follow that, and they are going to be following that also. So there isn't going to be a lot of changes.
So you're saying to me that there is absolutely no subjectivity whatsoever?
Pretty much.
There's not that much, no.
Okay, so I'd like to hear that from them. I'd like to have them explain that to us. I think that would help a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a public meeting with them is a great idea. Because we are getting a lot of questions about tax bills.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of emotion,
Yeah,
swirling around it.
Yeah.
And it'd be
Yeah,
good-
I hope that when there are questions that, you know, because we get a lot of questions also, that I try to always make sure I explain the assessment piece and the the tax rate piece, which, we have people come in whose bills have gone up considerably over the last few years, but their assessment hasn't changed. And we often bear the brunt of that. So I like to make sure that that is a piece of the conversation, that, our budget our expenses are going up, and everybody's tax bills are going up.
Our tax rate has gone up significantly. So a lot of times a
Right.
big piece of the increase is because of the tax rate, not because of a change in assessment. It's just yeah.
And in a lot of cases, the assessments have changed a lot,
Sure.
as I can attest from personal
Yeah.
experience.
Yep, you and I both.
I think, a
Yeah.
public meeting
Mhm.
with this new group and with the assessors, just discussing some of these questions would be great.
Right.
Over the
Right.
summer sounds good to me.
Great.
Any other items for the assessors?
Are we all set, Anna?
No, I don't have anything else.
Okay, thank you.
You good, Chris?
Thanks.
Yeah, we're all set. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna and Chris.
Good. Thanks for
thank
all your
you.
work.
Yeah.
And for coming.
Night.
Okay, Nancy, I think we've got a couple of quick things maybe we can work on until it's time for the free store.
Sure. So we can hop down to the request from the Meeting House about disposal of construction debris. Carolyn Manley did some research into this, and I think nailed it to me, Lori. And I don't want to read the whole thing, but it sounds to me like it's not legal for the town to offer this in-kind services for disposal of the construction debris.
Yeah, I just sent you guys the email, which is not easy to take in quickly. So sorry I didn't send it earlier. And I had this memory from back when we were doing something with Common Good that Carolyn had said towns are prohibited from doing any kind of donations. So that's why I asked her to look into it. And again, I'm not even sure I understand everything she sent, but I think that's the gist. That we're just not supposed to donate.
Okay, and this was for a dumpster, basically, if they wanted for construction debris. And can somebody communicate this to the Meeting House folks?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Nancy.
Okay, so town hall windows. Dan, you had asked for some bids from Tri-County Construction, and I think one of them was supposed to be there were supposed to be two different proposals, one for the whole large window that opened, and the other would be a fixed glass on the top and the bottom half opening. And I did get some information from Tom Chasen, but I think he mistakenly gave me two of the same thing.
Oh,
So I really don't have two separate bids yet, and we still, I think, need to get a couple more.
right.
But I'd need to get his second proposal, so, we could be asking for the same things from other.
Did he also give you a proposal for the salt shed
No,
or some for another building on the highway site?
not to me, unless he gave it to the highway.
Oh,
This is Phil. I've been having conversations with Tom. He's given me a verbal estimate for the salt shed, but I don't know where the paperwork is.
okay. Nancy, I don't think Tom gave us or even worked up a quote for windows that open all the way. I think that
Okay.
he leapt on this idea of having a fixed light as a really good idea. I think he thought it was a really good idea and saved on the cost a lot. But do we want him to do a bid on an opening window, folks? Or are we happy with this fixed light idea?
I assume it's cheaper. Do we know? I guess that's what we don't know without a bid.
Yeah, it's
And I
cheaper.
think-
It's cheaper and it's more energy efficient.
Yeah, I think it's probably a good idea not to, just to go with that one.
Okay.
Right. No, I like the idea of the fixed light and
Yeah.
how many other quotes do we need to get?
I think we,
I think just need two, and they're not formal quotes. I think we just need to, solicit some
Mhm.
bids.
yeah, Tom's bid was in the $5,000 range, I think, right, Nancy?
It's 5,600.
Yeah, so that's lower than the $10,000 limit where we really need to get official bids.
Okay,
That might be covered by all of the green communities money.
right. You said you had
Uh-huh.
like 6,000 of that, right, Lori?
We have 56, about 5,600.
Wow. Oh, that's magic.
Yep.
That would be really
Yes.
neat.
I'm sorry, we don't need to get any other bids. It's just sound business practices under $10,000. You're right.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
So we could just leap ahead and do that.
So I probably shouldn't no, I won't say that. Is there any concerns with historic preservation that we need to look into for this kind of thing?
That's a good question. I can't answer it. We should look into it.
Is that,
But I
I
would,
don't know how active our commission is. Is that who we would go to, or is there somebody else?
yeah, I guess we would go to them, whoever's doing that now. And it's,
think- Maybe Joe Cole?
Yeah, that would be my suggestion.
All right, so I can follow up on that.
Thanks, Lori.
would really hope that we don't need any historical preservation here, but we'll check it out.
If we would it expedite things if it's determined we don't to then move ahead?
I think we can do that. We can vote to approve Tom's
Oh, I see.
estimate, and if it's cleared historically, then we can just, outside of the meeting, tell him to go ahead.
Lori, do we
Everybody in
need to get
favor of that?
approval for green community money, or is that okay to spend?
We probably will need to, but I can tell Dan to go ahead and do that. So hopefully that won't take long either.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is there adequate ventilation without any windows open?
Oh, the windows would open.
Do.
There's a huge space there to fill. The old windows are very large.
Yeah, they're double hungs. Yeah.
So, yeah, so the idea was to put a smaller double hung window at the bottom of
Oh.
that space, and then a fixed light on top of it.
Oh, better yet would be just a little, okay, what do you call it? The one that flips out. That would be cheaper.
Well, it would be a double hung window at the bottom, which would open just the way.
But
they
there's
normally do.
the kind, what do you call it? Bill, what do you call it when there's just
An awning.
an awning window? Just put a narrow awning window at the bottom that can crank out. Then it's easier to maintain than a double hung, and then so you just open that when you want to open. That's much easier and it's cheaper too.
Well, I think he gave us a quote for double hung at the
No,
bottom.
ask him because he might be able to do it for less if he puts an awning window underneath. He might.
Christine?
I'm just wondering, are the new windows going to look like the old windows? Like, will they have the dividers?
Oh,
That I don't know.
I imagine we can ask for that,
Mullions?
and
depending on what we get. Or what, if it's the awning or the double hung.
yeah.
You should be able to get an actual drawing, part of the proposal. It will show you, I think the window opening is going to be divided about in thirds. So the top third's the fixed window and the bottom 2/3 would be the double hung window with the bottom sash opening. I don't have any details. I just had a conversation with Tom. I knew he was doing that.
And Phil, do you like the idea of an awning window at the bottom? Or
I don't think it would fit with the building. I mean, you've got a fairly historic building there with big, large windows with casements, dividers. And I think I think you'd want to try and preserve that look anyway.
yeah,
Awnings are fairly modern. I don't think they'd fit architecturally.
That's true. Yeah. The way it would look would be different. That's for sure.
So I can ask Tom for a drawing and we can, in the meantime, check out the historic and then go over this at the next meeting with the drawing. That sound all right?
Sounds good.
Okay, and we're now at 7:30, so we can talk about the free store, since there seems to be a few people here interested in it. And Phil, why don't we start with you about the free store? How are you feeling about it at the moment?
I think I've pretty well laid out my position. I've sent letters. It's been on the listserv. You folks have copies of it. Essentially, I'm looking to make an arrangement or change the way the free store functions to make it so it's sustainable for the staff and it's not a constant draw on their time and their effort. There's a lot of interpersonal things that go on with people that don't really appreciate the rules. They don't necessarily want to pay for things to dispose of. People frequently put things in the free store rather, and it becomes, I don't think unmanageable is an exaggeration. And it's a constant draw. When we look at it for, as a facility and how it functions and the limited staff that they have over there, there's 2 people. And I've made a list. There's actually 9 functions that take place where people are depositing things, not including the free store. And it's very busy. And like I say, the free store rather, is frequently a point of contention. It's repetitive. And I found out that we have funds from the recycling source of funds that came back with for turning in bottles and cans and things. It wouldn't cost us anything. We could make a nice, well-lit, modern, a shed and put it right next to where in that area, right as you come in the gate, off to the left is a nice area where it fit. We had, I know that the staff right now has a list of, I think the last number I heard was 16 or 18 folks that have put their names on a list to actually volunteer to work at the free store. So I think there's a lot of other options, and I'm trying to take a look at this and think what's the best thing for the facility, how the RATS functions, and what's actually the best thing for the staff over there, because frankly, keeping staff, just keeping staff there has been a challenge, and we have a good staff now. We have people that are working well, they're appreciated, the place is running very smoothly, and I think that making this adjustment with the free store I don't see any negative to it. I don't see any downside. It wouldn't cost us any money. We could have a nice, like I say, a well-lit, airy, clean building. We could have input from people that want to be involved in it. They may even, volunteer to take the hours that the RATS is open and have someone there to support the store. Like I say, I don't see any. I know there's a petition going around. I was quite surprised that this developed into such an energy that there was some a negative energy going back and forth. And frankly, the first person that I've spoken to myself about the RATS, about the free store rather, was on Sunday night at a phone call. That was my first interaction. So all this, the posters are up, the petitions going around, people are getting signatures, and it's not like anyone's trying to kill the idea of the free store. I know it's very popular. I mean, Dan, I know you and I talked about it last year. We've been, a couple of quick conversations about when's it going to open, and people have been asking all spring. So I know it's very popular. It was, this history. So it was set up, and the old dump used to run with the landfill. People would bring bags and throw the trash over the hill, and the free store was a nice place to go. Maybe it was sort of a side attraction. There was no other involvement with waste over there, as far as I know. So it's different now, and I think, and frankly, I think people are different. They're not as polite. They're not as willing to take instructions, or they're not comfortable. They don't want to pay. There's a lot of discourse about material handling for the free store, about the space it takes up. I just think it's a distraction for the staff, and that's for me, staffing at the RATS is I think it should be our prime consideration. I'd like to hear about this petition, though, what that's about.
Okay, well, thank you, Phil. That's a good, clear explanation, and I think you have my support as well as I think the rest of the select board. Can we get any comments from the other select board members at this point, or FinCom? Let's start with the select board.
I'll
Gillian.
go ahead. Well, this is our first time really as a group, we've been talking about it, and I have heard that people are very ready for it to open back up. I think I also heard, correct me if I'm wrong, that the Board of Health just said that the state has allowed them to open back up just this past week, I believe.
Right.
And it hasn't been up for discussion in terms of us saying it's not ever going to open again. So I too was sort of surprised that there was this petition, signs, and sort of that negative energy that we weren't listening to people because we hadn't been asked yet. So I'm glad people are here to talk about it, and I hope that we can move ahead and make a plan so that it works for everybody. And I do hope too that when other issues pop up, people will just come talk to us about it.
I can ask a few questions, Phil. I'm already losing my train of thought. So you had said since the beginning when the free store opened, there's a lot more recycling and other materials you have to handle, and that's why you feel like the space itself might not be big enough at this point.
Now I wasn't in town when the Rats was opened and it was a landfill. But that's my understanding is originally it was a landfill and then the free store was created. Not so much the free store, but that shed was created in conjunction with a grant with Orange, I guess. So then the recycling took place, and now so there's the bottle and can for redeemables that takes up a lot of space. Just walking in the door, you're going right to the dumpsters where it contains. You've all been there, you know. It's a pretty well packed building, and I know that last year. And going back over the last 2 or 3 years, we've had several issues crop up with the redeemable bottles, where that takes up a lot of space. It takes up a lot of time. There's issues of who's supposed to be managing it, who's going to get the bottles redeemed, and the good neighbors have pitched right in and been helpful, and we worked out. They have Paul volunteers a certain number of hours. He used to work at the Rats, but he wanted to just reduce his time there. So he volunteers hours to actually sort and stack the bottles, box, and they have to be, separated very carefully. And since we've had the COVID closing, Avalar, as most people are aware, is processing in all of the debris that goes into that building through that small door on the end. And the bottle redemption process has expanded because there's a lot of boxes, a lot of storage, there's a lot of bottles that all the shutdowns took place. The space actually has been taken over with, to a large degree, with the redeemables. But I don't know all the history. I just think that the Rats in general has evolved. It's been, something that a lot of people have dedicated themselves to and made a big success out of. And people still very happy to have the free store. So that's when I said, I don't understand. I don't quite see the downside of maybe making a nicer place to have the free store and having it so that it functions. And it's not taking up space right in the middle of the waste recycling.
So can I think one
Sure.
thing that comes to my mind is how long that might take, and is there to build a new building, and is there any plans, or do you foresee a way of opening the free store in the interim before a new building could be built?
Actually, I met with Ray and with Avalar yesterday, and we did discuss that. In fact, they were starting to clear out some space and move some things around, because we had said on a notice I had put in listserv last week that the earliest we could make it available would be on the 1st, which would be next Saturday. But so yes, that there is a way to do that. And I think we would talk, I'd like to have a conversation, or at least have an opportunity, the road commission would like to have an opportunity to just have these conversations with these folks that have stated they'd be interested in volunteering with the free store, and see where that would go. I think it's a, you know, it's a positive community thing that people like, and they want to keep it going. They want to be involved in it. So yes, we can certainly open up the doors, and I'm concerned still, and I don't think we've heard from the Board of Health. I know that the state says that we could open it, but it's still inside of a building, and there are quite a few people in town that have refused to wear masks, and they still do not wear masks, or more people now are not wearing masks. So I think the Board of Health should weigh in on whether in fact it is safe under the conditions that we have to open that. But given if we could get past that hurdle, then I think we can talk about the first still, and then go ahead with the plans and you know, have the free store evolve into something that's a little different, but hopefully works better for people.
Oh, that's great. And I'll just say, because you made me remember, that the redeemables, we should be prepared for that to grow, because I know there's at least some legislation about expanding the bottle bill at the state level. So I think there's definitely a lot of movement to, you know, increase different types of recyclables, and that might require more space in the future. So I think that this maybe more space is something that we could definitely use. But I think it is great to have an interim way to do it. And I was just going to say, I think that yes, the Board of Health can definitely weigh in, and if we have the volunteers that we think we might, and those people are excuse me, willing to do things like enforce mask wearing, which has been one of the issues, because it's not easy. People will just have to be aware, if that's going to be something that needs to be done, then that's what a volunteer might have to do. Or I don't know, maybe we can also talk, I don't know if this has been on anybody's radar, is actually hiring more staff. If we think this is enough of a value to the town, maybe we don't necessarily rely totally on volunteers, but we could actually get more staff. I'll stop now.
Okay.
Raise your hand. And Joanne?
I don't remember, but do any of the shelves that are in there, are any of them on wheels that typically in the past have had the free store items on them?
They are.
I believe they are on wheels. There's two shelf systems I'm aware of. They've been used they're used currently for the redeemable operation. But yeah, they're probably 10 feet long and 6 feet high with shelves on both sides, kind of like an open bookcase on both sides.
I was just wondering if they could just be rolled right out, you know, lift up one of the doors, roll them out right there, so that for now and temporarily they were not inside. And if there's space in those shelves, then there can be items for the free store. You know, if that space is full, then maybe other plans need to get made.
And certainly during warm weather, that would be a nice thing to do, I think. Another conversation that needs to happen is what items really are appropriate for the free store. You know, we've had people that want to bring mattresses, for instance, and box springs, and electronics comes up frequently, and we end up with people leaving things in the free store that actually don't work. So we end up disposing when in fact they should be generating $3 or $5 or more for a television, for instance. So
They do
so
work.
the financial issue isn't that big a deal, but we do lose money on people putting things in there that really aren't of value. But I think that rolling them out, having them open, having that building open in the area, I think it's a great idea. And I think there's no reason not to do that. I think that's a positive.
Doug?
So people probably don't realize this, but I'm, among all the other things I do, I'm the rep to the Franklin County Solid Waste Management. And so that we get Ray knows as much about this, and Christine knows too, I think, that we get a little grant from having that. So we probably need to have it anyway, but that's beside the point. I work at Pratt sometimes, and it's, as Phil said, and especially for me, because I don't work there all the time, free store has become a dumping ground. And if you turn your back for 5 minutes, people throw stuff in there that's worthless junk. And then you have people who come and have some piece that you think is worthless junk. They don't, and there isn't easy to mediate what is and what isn't. And a Ray's very patient person. That's all he was on here. I don't know if he's still on anymore. He's very patient, and so is Avalar. I'm a little less so. But it becomes a very frustrating process, and anything we can do to separate it out, really. The type of recycling that we're doing, I can tell you from what we're learning from solid waste management people, is going to become more detailed and more separation. They're encouraging us to separate glass. We're not doing that yet. If we can find a way to do it economically, we could probably make some money on it. There's now more value in the aluminum than there was, and we're collecting bottles and cans, many more than we used to. And I'm concerned. So what happens when you're working there is that people come and they spend a lot of your time with discussion that can become contentious, and that's it's not a good place to be. So if it's possible to move it to something that is more community driven and understood to be that way, that would be really great to relieve the staff of a lot of that. And as far as hiring another person, I would have to say as a FinCom member, no, that's not going to happen anytime soon. If you look at when you see your tax rate this year, you're going to be really disappointed. So that's off the table.
You know, one other item I'll just mention, and I don't think people are aware of it, but, and again, I know that folks are busy and they don't have the time, or they don't necessarily have the interest for recycling the way at its best, say. And people will take a container of mixed materials and just dump them into the big containers. And I know that Avalar, who's an avid recycler, he spends a portion of his day every day, you know, with a little tool, and he reaches into those big dumpsters and pulls things out that shouldn't be there. So
we dig around in those things. We actually get our hands and our bodies halfway into those things, trying to pull out the stuff that's not supposed to be there. It's not terribly healthy, but we do it.
So it's a busy job, and there's a lot to do just with dealing with recycling and dealing with waste management. So I'm happy that we can find a place to improve on the conditions for the free store. And I don't like I said, I don't see a downside to this.
Christine, you had something?
Well, I just want to point out that it's my understanding that the amount of redeemable bottles and cans that are coming into the into the rats has increased a great deal. And on top of that, the places where Avalar takes the redeemables aren't accepting them. And they didn't accept them for a long time, and now they only accept smaller amounts. So there's enormous quantities of redeemable bottles and cans. It's taking up most of the room in that, so there really isn't room in that shed at this point for there to be a free store there because of the bottles and cans. And even, you know, eventually maybe it'll winnow down, but then you're hearing that there are going to be more things to be recycled. So it sounds to me like that whole space is going to be used just for recycling items that would normally go in the trash, and there wouldn't really be room in there for a free store. I like the idea of having a nice small place separate for that. That's all.
Thank you. Okay, Sharon?
What do you mean? So Sean,
I thought I saw Sharon Gensler raising her hand.
sorry. Okay.
I had a couple things. One is, what size Phil, did you say you were thinking of for a different building? What size building were you thinking of would be constructed?
I'm not hearing you very well, Sharon. I think you're asking the size of the building.
Yes.
Okay, that's an option that we can discuss. I think when I mentioned a size, I was thinking like 16 by 20, maybe even a little farmer's porch on the front. Who knows? You know, we can get the materials paid for. when I mentioned that size, the woman at the mass recycling center said, wow, that's really big. Most people go very small because they don't want to generate the volume. So I know that New Salem has, but from what I understand, I haven't seen it recently, but I understand they have 3 very small sheds, like 8 by 8, you know, so they separate the things that go to free store, I guess, they itemize them. So it's a conversation we should have. We could design something that works for people. I was thinking that, you know, this thing about mattresses and box springs, you know, sometimes people get rid of a mattress and it's perfectly good for other people, but they have back issues and they get a new one, and maybe those things can be recycled. But the way it is now, you can't take a mattress and stick it anywhere and leave it for more than an hour, and, you know, whether have it stay clean or have it, you know, if you left it there for any length of time, there'd be rodents and who knows. But so there could be a shed, say, on the side of something where bigger items could store.
So there's money for this kind of thing, but there's not money for construction. I mean, I just know construction materials have gone skyrocketing. So I'm just wondering where that money is going to come from to build a new facility.
We do have, I don't have the exact amount, Sharon, but from the last I heard, it was over $10,000 in an account. And it's been coming back to the town in small amounts. And actually they've been after us to spend it because, you know, they don't want the money just hanging around. We've been looking at putting a new chain link fence on the front of the gate because the other one's a little rusty and doesn't work that well, but that's not a real emergency. But in responding to them saying we need to spend some money, we need to find some ways to do it. And I did specifically ask about building a shed, and they said that would certainly be eligible.
It's grant money. It's grant money it comes from Franklin County Solid Waste Management, or it's funneled through them, and it's conditional. So we can't use it for everything. We can only use it for construction and equipment, basically. So that's why it's there.
Yeah, they wouldn't let us use it for paving, for instance, and they can't use it for salaries, those kind of things. But we can use it for anything to do with upgrade and the building and the site. So the place we were looking at was that right as you come into the RATS facility, right on the left where the guys frequently park their cars. That's a fairly level area. We're prohibited from working our way out towards the back of the RATS facility because that is an uncapped landfill, which the state has been sort of giving us a nod and a wink for decades. I guess it should have been covered, capped, and they've let us get by without doing that. So we and the folks at Franklin County are concerned. We don't want to put that in the state's face that we're putting buildings on top of an uncapped landfill. So we do have an option to put it up on the front.
You know, in a way, I mean, but it was one quick thing. That would be, you know, looking at it from the aspect of somebody working there, that'd be great, because if people took their free store stuff first, right, then they could go and if they had something that couldn't go in a free store, then they'd know that and they would go through the process and get rid of it, or somewhere else where it would belong. Whereas now it tends to be last. So they've already gotten rid of everything they thought they were getting rid of, and then they got something they're going to think they're going to put in a free store that might not be appropriate. So it would be great if that was the first thing people did.
I don't want to hog the conversation, but I did have a couple points, and I was on the Board of Health when all of this happened, and I was on the committee that got the grant. And a big part of getting that building, the structure that's there now was for the recycling, but the free store was part of that. So, you know, I'm not opposed necessarily to a new building. I don't really know, but I think there seems like there might be problems with that because you won't have any RATS person, and would be employee would have to go way out of their way to be there. And so then we would be depending totally on volunteers. And it seems to me that this is a big part of keeping things out of the waste stream and saving the town money. And so it shouldn't be fully a volunteer thing. The town should have a commitment. That was what was written into the grant. And, you know, I know things change and times change and everything. That's why I was concerned to hear what Phil's had to say, that the attendants were having to deal with. And it's a drag when people are like that. But if people are supposed to be going into the RATS, you're supposed to have a mask on. And if they're not even wearing it to go into the RATS, how are we going to make them to go into a recycling building of wherever it is, so it shouldn't be, I don't think it should be a separate from the employees. They have to be involved in it somehow. And I just really, really, really strongly feel that, a nice new building might be perfectly fine, but that's going to take a while. And I really think as soon as we can start having some things, and why can't we just open the doors and leave the shelves where they are? Once they're full of things, you can't move them in and out very easily. But with the doors open, it's a lot of air moving through. And returnable bottles were never, in the beginning, was never a part of this whole program. There was a small corner set aside so the Boy Scouts could make some money with returnables, and it was getting things out of the waste stream. But to have returnables using the whole facility, it's kind of ridiculous. And who's getting that money? Is it Good Neighbors?
It's shared between the person that takes their vehicle and delivers them and collects the money, and it's split with the Good Neighbors.
So,
And
I really want to not take money away from Good Neighbors or anything, but I think the town really needs to weigh that in addition to, like building a whole building and keeping, I don't know, I'm going to shut up now, but
Volunteers could take
the volunteers, anyway.
I just like what people already complain about paying $20 for a permit and a few dollars a bag. So in order to do those things, you'd have to raise those fees. And what happens if you raise fees for the dump is that people throw things in the woods. So, every it's sort of like every action has an equal but opposite reaction to it. So unintended consequences.
Well, I'll just say again, I think we've covered it pretty well, but I think that the whole waste management issue is evolving, and as Lori mentioned, that the state is looking at increasing, and I have wondered why they haven't done it sooner, but you're throwing away as many as you're redeeming just into the waste stream. A lot of plastic that doesn't get redeemed, a lot of bottles and glass that doesn't get redeemed. So it may well be that in a few years we'll be redeeming and separating out maybe half as much as we're throwing away. But that's to be seen. So I think the space will become more of an issue over time.
I have a quick comment. This is Jenny. The redeemables isn't that supposed to be set up that they can go back to the stores where people buy the products and redeem them there? And it seems like we're shifting that job to our town employees, that many people that didn't feel they wanted to go cash in and get the nickels would just simply recycle it. And we've kind of taken this on now where we've created a job for somebody and a donation to Good Neighbors in a space and with a part of the payroll of the rats. And maybe there could be more of an effort to encourage people to return their own redeemables or recycle them. And so that's my input on that.
I have to say, I live on a dirt road, and if I collected all the bottles already that are on that dirt road, I could get a garbage bag full every day. People just won't do that. They're bringing them to the dump because they want to get rid of them. And if you said to them we wouldn't take them, they'll be on the road. I guarantee it.
And Jenny,
well,
there's
don't say don't take them. I mean, put them in the recycling.
Yeah, Jenny, there's another issue to that is that it costs us, if we put them in the recycling, it costs us to get rid of them. And we also have the aspect that there is some funds going to the Good Neighbors. So, and as far as taking them back to we couldn't take them back to the stores where you recycle. They only take like a carton or two at a time. So
we pay hauling fees. We save money on hauling fees by not putting those in the dumpsters.
Right.
See, it's really complicated.
I see that Sean Jarrett's had her hand up for quite a
Yep.
while. Sean?
Thank you. I think that there are two time frames. That's very clear from all the discussion we're having. There's the immediate need to reopen the free store at a time when there are no set guidelines, no clear guidelines for anyone, not for the staff, not for local people to follow. And then there's a long-term idea of how we can ensure the future and safety and improvement of the facilities we have. But just a quick answer, the petitions came about after conversations with RATS staff and a member of the Road Commission. It was very clear that RATS staff were unhappy, but that they disagreed completely about what was wrong. They did agree on the fact they had been told that RATS was going to be, that a vote would be taken to close it down, that the decision was made. I spoke to Mike Gifford and he confirmed that. And that's where the petition and the energy has come from. Now, we've spoken to lots of people, and I think this confusing, trying to conflate the two time frames is wrong because there's so many issues and everyone has raised valid points. I think the question of bottles taking over the facility that was designed as a recycling and free store facility is a really pertinent one. Those bottles could go in a separate small building. They should not be taking over the space. And if you look inside, the shelves are very, very spread out. I think COVID has had something to do with the fact those bottles couldn't be taken back to the places they came from. People's recycling habits have changed, and we need to assess what happens as restrictions lift before we can move forward with spending a lot of money on a building which may or may not be appropriate. In terms of volunteers, the staff have said that they get no training when they start working at RATS. And that they wish there were training because it would help them deal with the situations that come up. Putting volunteers in charge of facilities who have no training, I think creates health and safety issues aside from other issues. Whereas if we can enthuse all the people who care about this facility so much, we can build a consensus, as there used to be from the histories that people have been telling about the free store, that will help staff, benefit the town. And I think in terms of cost, it's quite possible to ask people to make donations for things they take away. I ran a secondhand table to benefit the Friends of Wendell Library for 2 years, and people were incredibly generous. We didn't put prices on anything. We simply asked for donations, and that money could then be used to help compensate maybe for the few people who are never going to go by the guidelines. And there's so much we could do. And I think we need a public discussion and a committee to oversee how we organize these things. If you get a lot of volunteers in and there's no plan, what are they supposed to do? And the staff disagree about what direction to go in. I don't see the sense in that. So that's where all this has come from. But there are so many good ideas. Everyone here has something valid to say. The staff are really important, and they shouldn't have to be unhappy about what's happening and feel they're working in poor conditions. You know, so the energy is coming from a good place. It's about community and improving the facility for all of us. You know, kind of recognizing that we need it. It's got run down, and we can do something to make it better. That's all it's about. But I do think that takes time, and rushing into permanent decisions may not be the best way forward. And that's all I've got to say.
Thank you.
I think. Dan, I think Sally wants to speak.
Sally, I didn't see your hand because your picture's gone dark, but
She's outside.
Sally, maybe you're muted. Okay, can't hear you. Can't hear you. Well, it may be an internet casualty or whatever, but.
Yeah, well, I'm at the library, so.
We can hear you.
Wait.
Oh, there you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so, yeah, so I'm at the library because I don't have internet. So at any rate, I want to address a few things. One is, as Sean says, we got the word from RATS employees that it was already, that there was a decision going to be made and that the direction was to close down the RATS. So that's what we heard. And so I'm a little sad to hear it characterized as negative, that we put out the petition, that we've been making these signs, because I see it as really positive. It's very positive to say, keep the RATS open. That's a positive statement. And it's not, Phil and I talked Sunday night about it being controversial. And I feel like, hey, this is a time I'm actually the status quo. I'm a conservative here. You know, I'm not the revolutionary. I'm saying business as usual. Keep it the way it is. But actually, it does bring up the whole issue of how it has changed over the years by decisions being made that have made it a much less effective store. And one of the things that Sharon and I talked about when we talked about the history is, because I remember when it first opened, I actually wrote the opera that we sang at the RATS when it opened. So the whole theme was refuse, reuse, recycle, and refuse then got changed to reduce. And that was the theme on which the grant was written. We have that whole shed because of the commitment of this town to reduce, reuse, recycle. Of those three foundation pillars, 2 of them involve the free store: reuse and reduce, because you can't reduce your consumption if you need things, but by reusing them, you do reduce your consumption. So 2 out of the 3 pillars of what that whole building was about is the free store. And when we started it, there were construction materials, there were furniture, there was appliances, there were a whole range of things that gradually have been eliminated. And we used to have access to the electric outlet so that anything that came in that was an appliance could be tested beforehand and also tested when somebody was taking it. And so if we do have another shed, I'd really, really like to see that we have a access to an electric outlet for it. I think a new shed is a great idea because I'd like to see it bigger. I definitely like to see bigger than 10 by 16, because I'd like to return to the original thing that made the free store so useful to all of us. We got, you know, back then we were able to, I mean, I did a lot of my house building out of materials from there. And a lot of people talked about how, you know, they never had to buy appliances back then. And now we can't do those. So I'd like to see it expanded from where it is now to where it was originally. And I'm fine with a new shed, and I really feel very confident in an ability, as Sean says, it'd be good for everybody to be trained, both volunteers and staff, and to really come up with a really good system of rules. But I think we could do a tremendous job with a coordination of staff and volunteers working together to create that. So I think it would be great to have a committee to really, really think out the brass tacks of what we want for this to happen. One thing, in talking to a lot of people have been saving their stuff up. So I have a fear of being overwhelmed when we first open it. And so one thought I had was, before we open it, to have some kind of like freebie exchange day on the common where people brought their stuff and we photographed them with their stuff. So they were responsible for bringing it home again if they didn't get rid of it. But then we could even advertise to other, you know, in the Athol Gazette and the Recorder, you know, to people could come up that day and get all this free stuff, you know, because almost everybody I have talked to has said, oh yeah, I've got a lot of stuff that I've been saving up to bring there. And I'm like, wah! So, so at any rate, I feel I feel like this whole process has been very, very positive, from taking it from what was going to just be a meeting to really exposing it to the whole town that this is an issue. And I just like to be appreciated for it being a positive thing.
Okay, I see Prue has her hand up.
Who?
Prue? We can't hear you. You probably muted the little button down on your left.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hey,
So, yeah, thanks. It's a convoluted process. I'm pretty familiar with Zoom, but wasn't doing what I asked. I'm familiar with two other recycling and transfer stations, both of which have small separate buildings for their quote unquote free store. They've got cute little names.
Hmm.
Pretty much those buildings are never open.
Oh,
Pretty much
Mm.
you can't drop things there, you can't pick up things there because they're staffed by volunteers. And
oh, they
it
don't.
just does not work. And I just think people need to very carefully consider the decision to create a volunteer staff that's running a store that during working hours, it's just, I really think it's not going to work unless it's run by rat staff, or, and if it's way over,
combination.
or some kind of combination of staff and volunteers. But having it way the heck over on the other side of the space means that the staff can't really monitor it, and it could just become a nightmare. So
Yeah.
that's my 2 cents. And I have tried multiple times to get into these separate spaces in other recycle and transfer stations without any luck. So, I mean, sometimes they're open and then they're really great, but it's very infrequent. Before COVID.
so that the Good Neighbors is a great example of how dedicated staff do an amazing volunteer job. I mean, it's just extraordinary what every week Good Neighbors does, and that is volunteer staff, so I
Right.
think that there are ways to organize. I certainly don't think solo, but I really think that we can make a coordinated plan between volunteers and rat staff. And the other thing is that it's being sort of described, it's an extra job. And I would like to see it, I would love to see people have the attitude that it's an integral part of the job, that it's one of the really integral elements of how the rats function. So it's not like, oh, this extra job. It is one of the jobs. And I think we can support it as a volunteer community to make that all work together.
So Sally,
Okay, well, I
can
think we've heard a lot of great ideas here, and I see there are people that still have more to say, but I just want to caution that we've been on this subject for quite a
Yep.
while, and we've got a lot of other business that the select board needs to do tonight. So, Phil, I think that you've had a lot of input there, and what's your thinking at the end of this discussion?
Well, I certainly, I heard Sally loud and clear that I didn't mean to imply that the energy, maybe I did say that, so I shouldn't say I didn't mean to, but it felt negative that all this energy was coming at me or at the commission, when in fact we hadn't had any public conversation or any private conversation. I hadn't had any. And I don't know that there's some things that are, I don't want to, pick at things that were said that maybe aren't exactly correct, but I like the idea of talking more with people that are invested. I think that, and rat staff do get training. There's maybe not as much as you would like, and certainly coming in new, you want to know more because there's a lot of issues there, but coordinated volunteer people with the rat staff, working with the commission, I think those are all positive steps. And I certainly did hear all of the good comments, and I certainly understand that people want to make this something bigger and make it better. And I'm certainly not opposed to that. So I think it's a good conversation. I think I will discuss further the idea of the size of the building. I will make some kind of public event or some meeting or some other, maybe a Zoom thing again, who knows, but we'll talk about the style. I think a group of people to have the conversation about what's appropriate for the store, the idea of the volunteer group, we can certainly work on that. So I think it's all good. And Sally, you are appreciated, so I hope that's enough.
Phil, when is your next highway commission meeting?
This coming Tuesday.
That's
Would
the
you be willing
place.
to have some public discussion about this subject?
Well, I
Or
mean, it's
maybe-
pretty fresh. I may have some more information. We can start talking about, size of building, monies that are available, the idea of contacting the people that have offered to volunteer. I don't know what we can do between now and Tuesday, but we do have a meeting. It's public. It's 6:30. It's upstairs at the town highway barn. We practice social distancing. We've been meeting right through the whole COVID with masks and keeping separated. So, and I did put that out on the listserv that meeting is public and in person.
Good.
I see that the training they haven't done training this year because of COVID. It's the Franklin County Solid Waste Management people who do the training, and they haven't done a training in a year, more than a year. And they schedule them regular, in regular times, they schedule those regularly, and whoever is hired new can attend them. So that's the reason why Avalar hasn't been trained.
Yeah.
And just from going to the Franklin County Solid Waste Management meetings, which I do every quarter, I can just tell you that more space is going to be required. The recycling process is becoming far more complicated because more things are being recycled. It isn't like it was 25 years ago when we started this. It's really changing, and we have to adapt to that. And I also did a quick calculation, and I can tell you that it's about $15,000 to hire a third person, which in normal times, wouldn't be a big burden. But in this time right now, the way we are with our budget now, it is. So that would have to be tabled until times change. But just so you have that information.
And for the time being, Phil, are we saying that the Highway Commission will try to open the free store on some basis on May 1st or not?
Let's say yes. I know that Ray has already looked at the space and they started cleaning some things out of the way. I hope people won't show up with truckloads of things on the first day, but we'll struggle with it. We'll get through it. And we'll get those shelves cleared off, and we'll figure out what to do with the bottle boxes and things like that. Maybe Avalar can get some more of them transported. So we'll say yes. I don't think there's a lot there now in the free store. So whatever transpires at the free store will mostly be people bringing things in, I assume. But we can leave the doors open. We'll make it fresh and airy, and we'll have the shelves available. We'll see how that
Like
works.
Ray might want to say something.
Yeah, I see Ray's hand up. Go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, Phil, are you talking this Saturday or the 8th, like you originally said?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean this Saturday. I meant the next one. Yeah, the 8th.
Because this Saturday is the 1st.
Thanks for clarifying that, Ray. Yeah, so that would give you some time to actually get things reorganized.
Yeah, because we need a little more time to straighten out in there and move things around. We're going to do that this coming week.
Okay, so we're talking about May 8th as a tentative opening.
And that's the same date that I put in the original notice on the listserv, so that's right.
Yes, it is.
The 8th.
Okay.
Okay,
And
thank you, Ray.
Maybe we should send out something on the listserv asking people not to bring too much on May 8th.
All right, we'll do something, yes, on the listserv.
People will be prepared to take stuff a lot away.
Jillian?
Phil, is there anything in writing about what are sort of items that are welcomed in the free store?
No, that's something that we could do. It's been sort of, as you go through the store and you see things that shouldn't be there, that's obvious. Something, no electrical cord in a television, for instance, would be difficult. There were actually a period where people were bringing in utensils, including kitchen knives, sharp blades, that kind of thing. any broken glass, but there's not a lot that shouldn't be there. I think the idea that big bulky items are not, there's no space for big bulky items. So, you know, similar to people that change mattresses for whatever reason, health reasons or anything else, you know, there may be some good use out of them still, and probably would be, but similar to that would be some living room furniture. People change out living room furniture, may not want to junk the other stuff. So those are things we should talk about, and in particularly in
Yeah.
figuring the size of the building.
And have some signs posted, which would help, hopefully.
We'll need some help.
Any chance?
Okay, Ray.
Any chance that the meeting?
Sharon, I can barely hear you.
Don't know why. I am not. I want to. As high as it goes. I wanted to ask Phil, but you're not hearing me because it's not lighting up. Never mind.
I couldn't hear any of that. I heard my
No,
name. I
can't
think.
hear you, Sharon, sorry.
Sharon, were you asking if you need to bring a chair to the meeting?
No.
No.
Okay, well, we're getting near the end of the public comment session, but Sean, go ahead.
I was just going to say that mattresses have been mentioned a couple of times, and I would like to say mattresses are not a suitable thing to be left at the free store.
Yeah.
Ever. I think that I would hope there would be a consensus about that, because they have been used, they may be stained. There are reasons for not recycling those. Many other things, but not those. Did people agree with that?
I thought it was illegal to do mattresses.
But I thought,
Okay, well, thanks for all the comments and thanks for everybody coming. And any further comments can be addressed to the Highway Commission at their meeting on Tuesday, or to Phil directly.
Okay.
Yeah, I put my emails on the listserv notice, the last one went out. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Phil, just Sharon's question was, can the road commission meeting be moved to another location?
If you don't like the highway barn, we could consider that. Did you have a place in mind?
She said it will be hard to social distance.
Okay. Sure, we could move our meeting to the town hall building, I suppose. We could move it to the town office building, the bigger, but that doesn't give you a lot of room either.
no room there.
Yeah.
You can have it outside.
It'd have
We
to
could
be
have it
outside.
out. That's what we did the first couple months with COVID. We met outside. So we will consider that, and I don't have any sense of how many people to think might come, but I think outside would be very easy. We'll watch the weather and maybe make an alternative plan for town hall or something like that.
Could we move a fire truck out and have the garage door open and be under the shelter there if it rains?
Oh,
That's a possibility. We'll have to consult the fire chief, but yes. I know that we use the other side for the rabies shots and things like that for the dogs. They use the barn, the garage. So yeah, we'll look at that. They could put the dump trucks out in this outside, and that whole bay is open.
Okay, well, thanks, Phil, for taking all that into consideration.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
good.
Thanks, everybody. Okay. Phil, while we have you, if
Don't we
you
get recess or something?
we all are looking for that moment.
Yeah.
While you're here, speed limit signs is on the agenda.
Yes, I see. Yeah. So you recall that we have, just to recap a little bit, there are 5 roads that we've identified that have no speed limits posted, and the reason being was that they were not paved at the time of the last certification by DOT, which was in the 70s. And the roads are New Salem Road, Morse Village Road, Montague Road, and just sections. Montague, that's the State Park Road. Farley Road, from the intersection of Mormon Hollow down to the railroad tracks, and Lock Hill Road. So we've discussed this. I've discussed it with the police chief. I've discussed it with FERCog. They were going to give us a proposal, but it never came back. And since then, as you may recall, at the board, at your board, we've talked about just posting signs. You know, it's not the same certification process that you could go through, and which would make the speed limit enforcement absolute as far as the police are concerned. But the police chief is not concerned about that so much, that if we have a speed limit posted at 35 and someone's doing 60, you know, I think that that's not an issue for him. The fact that we didn't get an actual certification through doing a traffic study kind of a thing.
Yeah, good.
So well, on the memo I sent, I've circulated it with the road commission, or with I didn't run into Wayne, but I did with Michael and with Rich Wilder, the highway boss. We suggesting that New Salem Road, this is the paved section from the center of from the bottom of the hill at Morse Village to the New Salem line, that would be posted 35, except at the intersections, the two intersections of Jennison Road where that crosses down at the other end. That's a pretty tight turn. There's a sharp curve. There's a drop in elevation. We're suggesting that that should be 30 miles an hour on 100 feet either side of the Jennison Road intersections. Morse Village Road, which is where the town office is, down to the bottom of the hill, that would be 35. That would be consistent with continuing on at 35 at the on New Salem Road. Montague Road, that's a freeway. I mean, the way people are driving now, and
Yeah.
we know we've talked about it, but I have no doubt that I've seen people doing 80 miles an hour and sometimes maybe faster out there.
Yeah.
There's no posting, and we're suggesting that 45 would be a reasonable limit on that stretch. So that's just from the Montague town line up to and prior to the intersection of West Street. And then it reverts back to 35, coming back up into the center of town. That's already posted there. And then Lock Hill would likewise be 35. So those are the suggestions. Nothing's been ordered, signs haven't been made or anything like that. But that's
And
it.
Phil, are these regular speed limit white signs, or do they have to be yellow signs?
No,
Because it's not enforced?
we're talking about posting regular speed limit signs, the white ones.
Okay.
Those are the ones that we're told by FERCog that require the certification from the DOT. And that's the whole process of going through the traffic studies and all of that. It's I think I mentioned once we got a bid for, I think it was $39,000 for an engineering firm to do a traffic study for Wendell. Just so it's an unbelievable expense for this. The yellow signs are that any town can put those up, and those are more like cautionary signs. There's another word for that. I don't have it right in front of me, but it's, you know, the arrows, it's like, you know, school crossing or children or that kind of thing. Those are yellow safety signs that we can put up.
So that's what you're putting up, the yellow signs?
No, we're talking about putting up the white speed limit
Okay,
signs.
sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
As we've been talking about signs, I've been paying more and more attention to not just in our town, but other towns too, in terms of how they're posted, what kinds of signs, what color
Sure.
signs.
Yep.
There's a lot of variation.
There are.
Well,
And
Bill-
interestingly, yeah, they have different sizes. You know, they come up in odd locations. You don't expect to see them. There's places where you think they really should be a sign now that you're paying attention to it. And there's places I've seen like that in Wendell. So we will come back with a drawing, a map of the town and indicate what speed limit signs are going to be posted where. Similar to this list, I think you have a copy of it. I sent it in to Nancy last week. And then if there's any other cautionary signs people want to suggest, it'll be a little bit of a project, because we're talking, by the time we're done, we could be talking 30 or 40 signs going up.
Does
You know
it
how
fit
much
the
they
budget?
cost?
What's that,
Does it-
Gillian?
You know how much they cost per sign?
I hear Dan, but I see Gillian. I don't know how that works.
I think we're asking pretty much the same question. I was asking if it's in the budget, and I think Dan was asking how much per sign.
I mentioned this to the chair of the FinCom last time we had this conversation, and he assured me we could afford it. Is he
Good.
still there?
Yeah.
Doug, you there? Oh, he's gone.
No, he's there.
I think we're okay with
It's
that.
harder to do the unmute than it used to be. There's a little thing that comes up in the top instead. Anyway, yeah, it's not prohibitive and it's a good investment over time.
Yeah, and to me, Phil, all the ideas sound good.
All right.
Do I have to add that to the highway? Well, we have a signed budget, right? You know that.
Do we have a signed budget?
Yes, we
I
do have a
think,
signed
I think we
budget.
have a line item. It talks about signs, but
We do have we do, and I'll tell you what it is. If you give me one moment. Oh no.
I was hoping we'd get to the place where you could say we could do anything we want, Doug.
Well, you know, you can if you're going to pay for it yourself.
Yeah.
I don't have any, I have no authority over how things get paid for. All I can tell you, I have no authority at all. I can just tell you how much money is going to be spent if we vote for it. That's all I can do. Wow, I can't get this thing to move now.
That's okay. I'm sure we have some funds in the budget. If we order them and get them printed by the end of this fiscal year, I think we can afford it with this year's budget. So
it's $980.
Okay.
Sorry, it took me a moment to find it.
That's right.
980. That's what's in there for you
Thank
for
you.
now.
Thank you. We don't know what we need yet, but we will have that conversation.
Well, if you let me know soon, and if it has to go up a little bit, I can do that. No.
Okay.
Not talking big bucks.
Thanks for all your work on that, Phil. Sounds good.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Dan.
We'll see if
Okay.
it makes.
This. Oh, I know.
Do you know the police chief, I described a scene with the police chief where I got passed on Montague Road coming into town and I was doing 50 and this person went by me like I was sitting still and he was doing 50. And the chief said, copy their number down and give it to me. He says he won't chase him to Connecticut, but he'll track him down and have a conversation with him. So if people see someone that's really driving crazy,
Yeah.
Grab the number.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good idea.
That makes sense.
Yep.
That's great.
Okay, well,
Yeah, I
thank
think
you
they're
all.
really into giving warnings, and the warnings have a big impact.
He has started doing that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And they're very polite and cordial when they do it.
Good
I
report.
understand. And the cruisers say Leverett Wendell now.
Mhm.
The car that we contributed says that, right?
Oh, that's the only one? Okay, yeah.
I think so.
They try to drive the same car to Wendell all the time, but you know, that may not always be the case.
I can update you just briefly, speaking of the police, is that I put together a proposal to renovate that building. I don't know if you've all seen that, but it came up to be $81,000 approximately.
Yep.
And that would completely renovate the interior of that building, including studying the interior walls, insulation, a new bathroom, redoing the ceilings, wiring, electrical stuff, and actually removing that old heating system and putting in some modern, efficient, what's the name of those, the things that stick on the wall?
Mini splits.
They're gonna be
Mini
heat pumps?
splits.
Mini splits.
Mini
Yes.
splits. Yeah, yeah. And those have the ability to heat and air condition. And you can separate the two zones that way. So the bathroom's over where the garage is now, and that needs to stay warm versus where the heat was on the other side previous to that. So I think it's a nice way to convert that building. It's a solid building. The bricks, it's all straight and true. The roof's good. If that grant comes through, we would have a nice facility there.
That would be fantastic to renovate that building. And Lori, you know, we did get that application in for that grant. And it was something like 80,000 for the building and
Yeah,
then
something like that. Yeah.
30,000
maybe.
more
That's
for the consultant.
Mhm.
So
Excellent.
we have our fingers crossed, but we should find out soon. And if that happens, that'll be a great step forward for the police situation.
Very good. Thank you all. I'm
Yeah.
going to tune out here.
Okay, thanks a lot,
We-
Phil.
Recess time. Thank you.
Can I say that I am now empowered to install Microsoft software on anyone's computer who needs it, who works for the town. So Phil, I know you were interested, but anyone else who was not able to come today, I can do it.
So is that just town-owned devices?
It is wonderful because it's not the subscription type. It's a fixed one that lives on your computer, and I know how to install it. They empowered me to do that.
Well, I appreciate that. I already have it on my computers, so
Okay.
But
All
I know that Rich and Joy and at least
They
from
got it. Joy got it. Rich doesn't want it. I guess he just doesn't want to.
I could have told you
We
that.
know that. Yeah. But as
Okay.
you have it, the part of the impetus of this is so that I can give people a copy of the budget in Excel and they can read it, and Barbara Craddock got it today and thought maybe she didn't know what it would be like, but she has a few files she opened. She was using Open Office for, and she was very excited when she found out how fast they open.
Great.
So we got Barbara, so I think.
And I'm glad you brought it locally that you can do it as opposed to
Yeah, I
trying
can do
to
it.
track
I
down
can
the
do it.
text.
So if you get a new computer, a new laptop or something, and you need to put it on there, I can do it.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yep.
Good night, all.
Night.
Night.
Night, Phil. Thanks for coming.
Okay.
All right. Just running down the agenda here, the next thing I see that we haven't talked about, I believe, is the RFP for 97 Wendell Depot Road. I haven't done much work on that. Nancy, was there some particular thing we needed to address there?
No, I think it was just a holdover from the last meeting. We'll until we've had a chance to look over the old I think we were going to look at the RFPs from
Eric.
the last house we did this for, the Herrick House, and see if there was something that we could use. But this whole MCAD thing is taking up a lot of people's times, and
Yeah.
I'm not going to have a chance to look at it this week. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Did you send it out? I can't remember if that was something. Okay, you did.
It did go out, Laurie. And
Okay.
That was a pretty complete, detailed RFP for the Herrick property. And I think it does have a lot of elements that could be used for this one, but not all. So if you have a chance to look at it, we can talk about it next time.
Great.
Okay.
And
So,
then use town hall kitchen.
So we had gotten a request from somebody that had frequently used the town hall kitchen. They have a small business and they wanted to know if they could use it. So I got an email from Barbara Craddock saying that the kitchen is actually being inspected today. So this would have been yesterday. Once the inspection is passed, we anticipate the kitchen reopening with some COVID protocols being added for safety. So I have not gotten an update from the Board of Health. So I'll move that. If we get any more information from the Board of Health, we can decide when to reopen that next time.
Yeah, and the kitchen committee is meeting on Monday. So, and Kathy Becker will know about what happened with the health inspection.
Okay.
So we can make sure we're ready to go.
Great, thanks.
The next thing is just for your information that Good Neighbors has given us an annual donation of $500, which was turned over to the treasurer. So the next thing, I'm currently the financial director, and when I leave, Doug, who has been doing a huge amount of work, has asked to change the name of the position to financial coordinator and actually appoint him. He has filled out the necessary paperwork as he's a member of the FinCom. I think it's, the disclosure paperwork, and I think it would be a great idea. He certainly is familiar with our finances.
Yeah, that's for
And
sure.
this would start on July 1st.
Well, I think in my book, you can consider yourself appointed. Do we have a consensus on that?
I think it's a great idea.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
Maybe that'll
so,
free up the couple of hours for the assessor clerk from the coordinator.
It
Yeah.
may. Yeah, that's true. It might. Yeah, some of that. I'm hoping they'll be able to help train the administrator in the system in their first year.
Right.
And I thought about what would I say about this. Well, Gillian and I talked about it some, and I think what getting a little more coordination between the various departments. getting together maybe a little more often, or figuring out ways, improving the communication generally, which was one of the reasons why we thought it'd be great for the administrator to also be the clerk for the assessors. And what was the other clerk job, Dan? I don't remember. It doesn't pop into my mind right now, but
The town clerk.
oh, yes, right, the assistant town clerk, right. Then, so they would be more, I think it's a she we're considering right now, right? Would be involved in those already. So between that and the experience I've had working with all the different departments, we might be able to get some better communication happening, and that would go a long way to solving some of our issues. I think you know and would expect to hear from me that I have little agendas that involve advocating with the state for changes in the law. Everything from the way that we subsidize, don't subsidize special education expenses, to the personal property tax inequities because of the way that they are charged the residential tax rate, which doesn't make any sense at all. So my goals in those are not so much to lean on people or get people to do things they don't want to do, but to try to get unified advocacy and to try to work with other small towns to make the same, work together to try to get these changes. And
Oops.
which is kind of, it was enlightening to find out that there's a thing called a tiny town exemption that it involves employees holding multiple jobs, and I wonder if that might have been applicable to the issue when we had the person who was mowing the lawn or doing snow removal and also working at the rats. It might have qualified for that. I'm not sure, but since they've done that already in some cases and let us have exemptions because we're less than 1,500 people, maybe there's other ways we can take advantage of that. So, I'm always trying to do those things, and pester people about it. So,
well, thank you, Doug. And thanks for taking this job. It's a good idea, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, and I have two quick things that were not on the agenda. One from Barbara Craddock saying that the Board of Health has received a request for a yard sale to be held on the Common, as people have many things to get rid of. As of March 22nd, yard sales being allowed again by DPH, and we have a set of standards to be followed. Is approval from the Select Board required to use the Common for this purpose?
Well, I did actually get back to her and say that, yes, it is important for people to check in with the Select Board about use of the town Common, at least because there may be a conflict. Like, we've already approved the use of the town Common for a pretty big wedding in September. We wouldn't want to have someone else having an event there at the same time. So I think in general, it's a good idea to check in with the Select Board for any large public use of the town Common. Is that agreeable to everyone?
Yes.
Yep, I agree.
Okay.
Do they do that with the plant swap? Just
Yeah,
curious.
and that's
kind
the
of-
next request.
Oh.
Scott, the community garden would like to use the town Common on Sunday, May 23rd to hold a socially distanced plant swap.
Okay. That sounds good. And it sounds like we need to have a little calendar book to keep track of all the uses.
Okay, I can
And
put
we-
something together.
Approved the yard sale. Was that part of what we were talking? Did we officially
Well,
approve
no,
the
that's-
yard sale, or is that Barbara's job?
They didn't have a date for the yard sale.
Oh,
I think
okay.
that we're just asking them to give us a date before you approve it.
Right.
And
Was
just
it May
the last thing
23rd? Sorry, May 23rd was the plant swap.
Yep, May 23rd. And then under old business, just keeping you abreast of what's going on with the dry hydrant situation. I heard from David Dineski, who said the next step is to prepare an easement document. And he asked me to forward a copy of the survey, which I did. But the survey does indicate on the bottom that it's preliminary. And I asked Joe Cuneo if, I said the lawyer is going to get this started based on this document, but I think for a final easement, it has to say, it's a real survey, not a preliminary survey. So
Right.
they're working on that.
Okay.
And that's all I have at 8:45.
Doug?
I have a couple of quick things. One is really important. Last year, this time, we had a town meeting committee meeting to figure out how to do the town meeting. We're not doing that right now, and we've got, what, 6 weeks? I wonder if could the select board ask the moderator or whoever else, or somehow get somebody to grab that issue and try to figure out, coordinating how it's going to happen. Is it going to be outdoors again? Are we assuming that?
I don't think we talked about it really, but
Yeah, so-
how do people feel about outdoors? It sounds good to me.
I think.
Yeah,
I
I think that's
I'm
good.
assuming it would be.
We know how to do it now. Al's actually still on, and he was providing sound, did a great job, so maybe we can get him to do that again. But
Yep.
yeah, we should have a group of people discussing that and figuring out the lines, and we probably aren't going to have to be hopefully we're not going to have to be as meticulous by then because of the more lax outdoor stuff. But yeah, so that was one thing. The others, I would like to be on the agenda for the next time to discuss fiscal issues that need your attention, around what the rate might be, the salary increases, a few other things the FinCom has voted on that are changes. And I'll need a couple of weeks to think about that, to what to bring to you, but there have been some changes, and the relationship with the accountant has certainly been better. And some of you got notes that involved the sort of difference between the accountant tracks our accounts and the way we track our accounts, and the way that we get the accounts from the big providers like Mahar. And there's been some differences there, and we didn't really even realize that until we started comparing our budget with the warrants and what the lines that the accountant was using. And it's not like there's a big problem or anything, but in fact, we discovered there was a line that we didn't need because Mahar was including it in their budget and we weren't. And previous years, it was always separate, and now it's not. And geez, so no one tells us, we don't get a little a note saying, heads up, we're changing the way this is. No, we don't get that. So, I should be on the FinCom should be on the agenda for the next meeting. I'll come prepared with a little list of
Sounds
things.
good.
There was a question on the listserv from Mary Thomas about deadline for the annual town meeting warrant.
So we
Nancy?
voted a number of years ago at town meeting, it's 35 days before town meeting, they have to submit their stuff, so soon.
Okay.
We've got like a week and a half.
Yeah, that's to submit, right?
Yes.
Yeah. We will need I can tell you this, that we will need an article in the warrant about the elder tax referral. That has to be done every year anyway. And we'll probably change some of the numbers again because no one's has applied for it yet. But it's that with Penny, and she thinks that, she still likes the idea. It saves people interest money. We've been through this before. It's for the right person. It's a great thing. We'll probably lower the income eligibility a little bit and make sure that the interest rate is appropriate.
Gillian, did you want to reply to Mary? Or
I'll reply, and I'm just confirming that I say the right date. The 12th, June 12th is our meeting.
yeah,
Right.
So 35 days prior to the annual town meeting is scheduled for June 12th
Right.
at 10 a.m.
Okay, Lori, did you have any other items?
no,
Gillian?
I thought there was something, but I've forgotten it, so that's okay.
Well, I think we've covered the waterfront. We've touched on a lot of subjects here, and
Mm.
I'm
It made up for our quick meeting last time.
We paid our karma debt, I guess.
Good job.
Good job, everybody. Yeah, really
Yeah.
great meeting.
All right, so we'll see you all tomorrow to sign things. I don't know if you want to pick times.
Yeah.
I will have to try to come in before 9.
All right, I can do 10.
All right, I'll do 11 or later.
All right.
Oh, I know what it was, Dan.
Yeah.
It's nothing big. So I had talked to Asa, who said to talk to you about the green signs, and and you told me to talk to Rich, I think. Rich told me to talk to Joe Cuneo, and Joe Cuneo told me to talk to Nancy. And she's the
Talk
one.
to begin with. Your signs are on the table, Gillian.
Thanks, Nancy. No, I thought it was a funny little background to Nancy. I should have asked her to begin with.
All roads lead to Rome.
Right. And I've got my green signs, so we're good.
Good.
Is this a house sign? Is that what you're?
Yeah.
Are we able to get new ones if ours are destroyed? Is that what's?
Depends on what number you want. We're running out of numbers.
Oh, yeah.
We
Okay.
do have plenty of green signs, but
Oh, you have some
you wanna-
numbers left.
I'm running
Maybe
out
you
of,
combine a couple of them together. I don't know.
I made ones out of 4s, I think, for
Uh-huh.
Gillian's signs. He needed 11, so I needed 4 ones and I didn't have any. But we got it to work.
Okay, good to know.
Okay. Thank you, Nancy.
Good night.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.
Night.